Hello and welcome to the Xen Project hands-on video series. Today we're going to talk about the transition from XM toolkit to XL. We're going to answer the question, first off, why are we doing this? Why are we moving from XM to XL? Why are we changing toolkits? What do we need to get there? How is this going to change the things that you do? And when does this become a mandatory changeover? Plus, we'll have a couple of minutes just to demonstrate the difference, or the lack of difference in a lot of ways, between XM and XL. So the first question, of course, is, why XL? XM's been here for 11 plus years. It's still hanging on. And it's worked admirably, but it was written in Python, and it has a history of locking problems under certain circumstances. It's also becoming kind of crufty. It's hard to fix bugs, and new features are really tricky to add at this point. It also relies on having the Xen daemon, which maintains state. And by the state, I mean things like, is the VM up? Is the VM down? Does it exist? All these various things that are held in a daemon and not something closer to the vest. So architecturally, it's been felt that it's a little on the old side, plus from a functional standpoint, it's getting harder and harder to maintain. Now, the new XL toolkit is quicker, cleaner, it's written in C, it gets rid of the historic locking problems that we had with XM. It's a lot simpler to maintain, a lot simpler to expand and to add new features to. The whole Xen daemon concept is gone, and in its place, we are now relying on a library called libvirt. As a result, the whole architecture is much, much cleaner. And there is no need for a daemon to maintain state. That's just dealt with at the library level. So how do you get there? Well, the short answer is start using XL commands instead of XM commands. The syntax is the same. You change your command files. If you have command files, to start wherever it says XM, you substitute XL. The target is to have something that is backwards compatible, and there's a few notable exceptions to that. But the idea is that we didn't want to go around and change syntax. The syntax will work if it's still something we support. It's still a command that is supported, and almost all of them are. The syntax will be exactly the same as it was. Now, from a practical standpoint, if you are using a version of Xen that supports both XM and XL, and that would be from Xen Project 4.1 release through 4.4, you have the option of using either one inside each of those releases. If you're going to start using XL, you must disable the Xen daemon. Now, if the Xen daemon is working, you can only use XM. XL will refuse to work. If the Xen daemon is not working, you can only use XL. You cannot use XM and XL simultaneously by design, because the theory behind them is different, and so there's no way to get them both to work simultaneously without just, total nonsense going on. So it's one or the other. Now, if you're using libvirt, you need to make sure that you're using a current version of libvirt which can talk to libxenlite. And most of the current versions are really good about that, but if you're using some old version of libvirt on your install, you may need to upgrade libvirt. That's all you really need to do, just to make sure the capability is there. Now, how is this going to change the way you deal with the world? Well, if you've been using XM only up until this point, it really doesn't change much at all. You just start using XL and you won't care. But if you were using XM and libvirt together, we need to realize that state won't be maintained across the two different tool sets. So in other words, if you use a libvirt tool to create a VM, you cannot then use XM, or in this case XL, to go in and make adjustments to that VM. Does not work, because XL doesn't know about anything that libvirt has created and vice versa. So if you're working with libvirt, stay with libvirt. Use the libvirt-based tools, and everything will be just fine. But you cannot cross from one tool set to the other. For most people, this is not a problem at all. Now, we mentioned that there are some things that are not supported anymore directly. Well, there's a few things here. One is that we used to allow for arbitrary Python code to be inserted in the configuration files. Very powerful, but number one, we're not using Python anymore. And number two, you can, as one might imagine, when you can insert arbitrary code into a configuration, debugging can get awfully tricky at times. So we're just doing away with the whole thing. It really didn't make sense to continue. The other thing is that the notion of a managed domain is no longer supported in the XL toolkit. So what does that mean? If you right now in XL you create a VM and it starts. In managed domain concept in XM, you had the option of either just creating the domain and having it start, or you could create the domain and just have it sit there and then come along with the VM start command and actually have it start executing and so forth. We don't have that concept anymore in XL. If what you're doing requires a managed domain, and I don't think this will apply to very many people, libvirt and Zappy both are still working with managed domains. So those are possibilities for you. Now, another change is the W exclamation point notation to share disks across VMs. That is no longer supported. And you can look inside the wiki to find out the appropriate syntax to use now inside XL. Also, XL does not auto-configure the host networking. Doesn't do it. Why? Well, XM used to do it, but there have been fragile instances with XM where it doesn't always do the right thing when it does that. So it was decided that XL, you know what, we'll let you set up your networking. We've got a wiki page on it. It's relatively straightforward. Just go ahead and set up your networking, and that way the toolkit doesn't have to be responsible, and that way the toolkit can't drag you down. So we'll just use the wiki and set up host networking. And also, you'll notice that there are new things inside XL, like the REMUS commands. Now, the REMUS commands were separate under XM. REMUS, if you were not using REMUS before, this is the high availability capability within Xen Project software. If you're working with the cloud, you're probably not using REMUS. If you're using something that's more traditional and you need something that provides traditional high availability, REMUS is an option for you. That's now part of the XL toolkit, as are many new features as they come in. Now, when does this become a mandatory changeover? Well, XL was introduced with the 4.1 release of Xen Project. With 4.5, XM no longer exists. So if you're using 4.5 or beyond, you must work in XL or you must use libvirt or Zappy. Now, in the interim releases, if you're using 4.1 through 4.4, you can use either XM or XL. So if you're in that state right now and you want to get used to working with XL, as I said before, disable the XenD daemon and you can start using XL right away without doing any sort of upgrade whatsoever. And for most people, the change over to XL really is painless. I mean, modify existing config or existing scripts to use the XL instead of XM, but the syntax is the same, and it just rolls forward. It's pretty simple. Now, let's just spend a moment looking at a little bit of hands-on here. And I have two windows here on the left. I've got something that is attached to an old Xen 3 box. and I use the old xm info command, and we see the expected output. And on the right, I have a new Xen 4.2 actually box, and I do XL info, and I get expected results. Differences there because of the hardware on the respective boxes, etc. But you see that the syntax is exactly the same, and we can use other, commands, of course. XM list. We see the expected output. Over here, XL list. There you go. See that there's some very minor differences in terms of cosmetics, but it's the same, and it gives you the same expected output. Now, as I said, this one on the right is running Xen Project 4.2, and 4.2 has the help files for both XM and XL available. So even though you're using only one toolkit, you can see the help files for two. So let me take a look at XM Create, old favorite, and here we see the things that we're all used to with XM. If we say XL Create -H, we see basically the same set of options. Now, there's one option on there that was experimental that's been removed, but otherwise, other than changes in text and so forth, we're looking at similarity here, and that's the way it's supposed to be. That you don't need to go around making huge changes. Likewise, XM help. Here's the list of the commands that we're all used to historically. XL help gives us pretty much the same list of commands, different order because they were organized differently, and some new commands too. As you see down here, you see REMUS is now rolled into XL as well as other things. So this is the sort of change that you should expect. Really, not difficult sort of work, basic and straightforward. Now, if you need more information, then look at things like this. Here on the wiki page, the XL versus Xen feature comparison. This gives you, in a nutshell, what things are supported in one and in the other. This particular version that we're looking at was as of Xen 4.2 release, so I expect that's going to be updated soon so that we can see the changes. But you see what's going on there. And then the second page of interest is this one called Migration Guide to Xen 4.1 Plus. And if you look at the tool stack upgrade notes, there's the information on going from XM to XL, and it will look suspiciously similar to the stuff that I covered in the slides at the beginning of this presentation, and it will even include things like the links to the networking page and so forth, as well as discussion on how you can get hold of the developers if you think there's some sort of problem here. But by this point, we've had several releases that are running under XL, and things seem to be going very, very well. So I hope this is a benefit to you, and as usual, let us know at xenproject.org if there's anything else we can do. If you see documentation that could be upgraded, likewise, we have document days every month, and we'd like to know, and we'd love to have your assistance to make the documentation even better for the next person. So I thank you, and hope this has been of some use to you.